Okay, Rick. Well, if you'd like to get started, I'm ready.
Yeah, why don't you give me a little bit of background on the club? Um,
Sure.
I'm interested to hear about Sarah and see what your interest areas are, Sarah, and what your major is at ASU and all that kind of stuff, and that way we can maybe get the discussion started.
Awesome. So the Pre-Health Integrative Holistic and Quantum Club is all about helping students that are heading into alternative medicine. So anything outside of your allopathic pathway, such as, chiropractic, naturopathic medicine, acupuncture, even massage therapy, if you want to go into intuitive Reiki healing, wherever you want to go after your degree at ASU. If you're heading into something alternative, that's where we want to support. I am a holistic practitioner myself, so that's my motivation to start this group. Is I knew that there were other people like me that were more in integrative health and holistic health, and I just wanted to find my people. So I started the club, and we started the learning opportunities because when I was in my community college, we had these speakers that would come and speak about alternative medicine. And it just gave me so much of a better understanding of what alternative medicine was, how it was different from allopathic medicine, and how important those therapies were and what they could do for us. And it just shifted my perspective completely. So this is where it all started. So with that, we invite anybody from really any college is welcome to join our group, because we support people that are even already in entrepreneurship in their, in their therapy or moving into whatever their field is going to be. We invite graduate students, we invite people to participate from all over the place, even the local healing arts school. So there's a lot of value that we can offer as an organization. I'm a nutrition major personally and an entrepreneur, so this is near and dear to my heart, this conversation. Definitely interested in creating something really big and powerful, which I think you and I actually spoke about a year ago, Rick, and this beautiful wellness center that I want to start. And so I'm really excited to have you share with the group about the HeaLab and the work that you're doing and all of the wonderful things that ASU can support for us little entrepreneurs that want to do something big in the world.
Very good. All right. Well, that gives me some context of the group. That's very helpful. Sarah, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I want to say thank you, Stephanie, for allowing me to join the group. So I'm one of the master's students. I'm in the Science of Healthcare Delivery right now. I have about maybe 2 months left, and then off to the real world.
Hey.
Yeah, so my point of view for healthcare is a little different. I kind of jumped into the deep end, just kind of started working. I did a undergraduate in health science, and then I worked as a medical scribe, just because as a medical scribe, I knew that I could learn so much just by being in the setting. So that's kind of where I learned about all the different aspects of medicine and, providers. And I learned a lot. And then after about a year of scribing, I decided to go and do this healthcare delivery master's, which is accelerated, and I should be done in about 2 months. So I'm trying to determine the step that I would take next. I'm kind of open to everything. I do want to be a provider at some point. I just really want to be well-rounded in order to give my patients all the information that I know, not just in healthcare, like treating them, but also all the resources that they can use, because I know there's a lot of social determinants of health. So just kind of, I want to be knowledgeable myself. It's just a self goal to have as much knowledge as I can. And then in order to share that knowledge, with my patients. And then eventually later on down the road, I would actually like to become a professor and teach as well. That's a little bit about me. So all the different things.
Great. Nice to meet you. Are you based in Arizona?
I am, yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, very good. I know Chrissy very well. I've known you for, oh my gosh, probably 20 years, I would say. I don't know, at least 15.
Since my undergrad, I think, and you were a graduate student. I think that's when I met you.
Wow. So it's probably back in the late 90s.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
That's cool.
I know. But I think Rick and I were volunteering at this like, gosh, it's like an outdoor event. I forget what it was though, but yeah, it was so crazy. Feels like yesterday, sort of.
Yeah, but it's been a long time.
Yeah.
Maybe for Sarah's sake, you want to tell her about you and what you do?
Sure. Well, Sarah, I'm a lecturer in nutrition, and I actually started in health sciences, and I still teach one course in health sciences. I kind of fill in when needed. So, but I teach an entrepreneurship class that actually Rick taught at ASU, and I took over that course. And Rick actually was my guest speaker each semester that I have it in person. I think you were there what was it, like last February? I think you were there.
Yeah.
Gosh. But I'm a dietitian, and I always wanted to have my own business. So I kind of jumped into private practice right after I got my RD, which was back in 2004. And I always wanted to be a teacher too. And so I started teaching at the community college level. And then there was a position that opened up at ASU. I was actually a faculty associate at ASU, and then I became a lecturer. And I teach a whole variety of courses, but definitely quite a bit of the entrepreneurship class. I teach that online and ground. And then I also teach the history of nutrition. I teach a communications course in health sciences. And I'm currently trying to finish up my health coaching, where Julia and I were, Julia's been done with that for a while now, but I'm just trying to get done with that. I'm pretty close to finishing that as well. I guess that's everything about me, but I guess as a dietitian, I'm really passionate about the integrative and functional nutrition approach, which is what really intrigued me about this particular club. So when Stephanie reached out to me, was it last year, Stephanie, or I forget when that was?
2019. It was right at the beginning of the club.
Right. Yeah. And it just sounded so interesting. And I love that whole like holistic approach to treatment. And so, that's kind of where, like, as a dietitian, that's kind of where my, like, I guess my interest is moving more towards that whole like functional medicine approach.
I think you missed the yoga stuff.
Oh, yoga too. Yeah. Well, Julia too. I'm a yoga teacher. I started practicing yoga, in 2004. And after my first class, I just decided I want to be a teacher. So I signed up for teacher training after my first class, because there was something about yoga that I felt that was very, very healing. And so I still love it. Especially now, it's been very helpful with dealing with all this craziness going on in this world. So yeah. So this club is wonderful, and I love how we have like over 300 members. But I wish that there were more that would like jump into these great like guest speakers that we have, like Rick. It's shocking to me, just the engagement. I think because people are just doing so many different things now. Maybe I don't know what it is, but people are busy. But I'm glad you're here, Rick. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us.
All right, Julia, it's your turn, and then I'll do mine.
Okay, good. All right, cool. Thank you so much. Likewise, I just want to mirror what Chrissy was saying about just thank you for taking the time. I know you're busy, and it's really appreciated. So yeah, just a little bit about my background, I guess I would say, is as it relates to this topic tonight on entrepreneurship, to speak to that. I've been in the fitness and wellness field since 1995. I started as a yoga teacher, did my teacher training in 95 after I had the birth of my first son, who's turning 26 on Saturday, which is amazing. But anyway, so that was kind of how I got into all of it. And then I had all of my children naturally and practiced yoga and taught yoga through my pregnancies, and then got my certification as a group fitness instructor and then as a personal trainer. And so I really ran my own business while raising the kids, and did that by being an entrepreneur basically at several different health clubs. I was kind of like my own little brand. And so I went to different yoga studios, health clubs. I mean, I always had like, 12 1099s, so it's like, and also really into nutrition, not as a registered dietitian, but definitely speaking about that. And the Chinese philosophy is very similar to the Ayurvedic philosophy. So I'm really passionate about Chinese herbs and herbology and all of that. And then, like I said, having the children naturally, definitely into the holistic realm. And anyway, so that's been a big passion of mine. I've done that kind of on the side as a wellness coach. And then opened up my own wellness center in 2000, wellness center / yoga studio. It was pretty extensive with 12 contractors, independent contractors. And I learned a lot. It was the Harvard Business School education. I would definitely do things differently. Had to close after about 3 years, and it was a pretty challenging experience. So that's a whole nother thing, but you learn a lot from those. And then, yeah, pretty much that was kind of throughout the whole time. Went back to school when the kids got older, got my undergrad in exercise and wellness, and became a health educator at ASU. And then I went on to get my master's actually in the science of healthcare delivery. I decided I wanted to have more of a healthcare side. I had a lot of wellness for years and years, and I wanted to see if we could bridge that gap in integrative health. And it was a fulfilling experience. I became a coordinator for the graduate school for a little bit. And then I have been faculty now for about, well, coming up on 6 years, I guess, and 7 years. And I teach all across a lot of programs because I have such a varied background. But I still do, you know, teach yoga, do a lot of, I'm a certified, national board certified health and wellness coach. I went through that program a couple of years ago. So I do that. So I love the entrepreneurial side for sure. So I'm excited to hear from Rick. I also do really value a steady income, you know, and having been in circumstances where I've been fully commission only, trying to work and make a living, there's a lot to it. It's not just, oh, this is so great, you're on your own boss. You also are your own boss and you're doing everything. So I think I can kind of speak to some of the pros and cons to it. But I'm excited to hear from Rick I'm always open to hearing how to be better and be more successful and everything. But I do love being in the faculty position and helping students in finding their path and their way of how they want to bring, you know, health and wellness into the world. So sorry, that was a little long, but that was it.
Oh, awesome. It's funny how like both you and Chrissy and myself actually all at one point were master graduate students at ASU. Now we're all faculty.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Here's Sarah saying that that's kind of her area of interest.
Yeah.
Very common, I think. I was in a meeting the other day, probably about a week ago, and someone was asking about someone, I can't remember, but it was a faculty member, and I mentioned that I think about half of the nutrition faculty were at one point my students. You know, it was like,
yeah,
so many of my students have like become graduate students, and I was like they were defending their thesis to me, and then 5 years later they were teaching at ASU, and so. Happy to support and help people that are interested in that route. Sarah, I could tell you that it is very fulfilling to be a teacher. And I echo what Julia said. I think it is easier to be an entrepreneur when you're already have some type of steady income. And so ASU has been a good provider of that for me over the years. I've been at ASU since 2002 or 2001. I really started around the same time that President Crow started at ASU.
Oh, wow, that's pretty cool. Not many people can say that.
Yeah, I mean, it's been, every year I look at my retirement plan because I think I could actually retire this year if I wanted to, but
oh, geez, that's inspiring. Yeah.
I won't. That would be early retirement. I'll probably be here another 3 years at least, but but I really enjoyed being at ASU. And most importantly, I enjoy just teaching what I have a passion for. And so my background, like Chrissy's, this is nutrition. I have a bachelor's in nutrition, a bachelor's in nutrition from NAU, master's in nutrition from ASU, and a PhD in hotel and restaurant management from Iowa State University. So I didn't want 3 degrees in nutrition, so I was looking for another degree that was related. And I was teaching a lot of the food management courses in the College of Health Solutions. And also at the time I was an entrepreneur owning Subway restaurants. So my wife and I owned Subway restaurants in Phoenix for about 10 years, and we were up to 10 restaurants at one point.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But also just had other entrepreneurial things. Somebody asked me earlier today, what started me in entrepreneurship? And I said, I think it was being a paper boy, because when I grew up in Illinois in the 70s, and as a paper boy, you'd have to go kind of get your own clients and like go collect money every month. I mean, I had to literally go knock on the door and collect a payment, like they give me cash and I turn it in. And I think just this whole idea of adding value and getting money for an instant gratification of getting paid for a service was just always something embedded in me from the time I was a kid. So I love ASU. I love nutrition. I love wellness and the health field, but I also very much enjoy being an entrepreneur. So just to give you a little bit of background, I told you about we've owned Subways. I accidentally fell into the website development business. Why I say accidentally is back in the early 90s when the internet was kind of becoming big, and this is actually before Google, believe it or not. There was companies like Yahoo and About.com and Excite, and I worked for About.com as a nutrition guide. So I learned how to write for late, to take scientific information to the lay person, and I was writing a lot of articles. But I also learned how to HTML code, and that was a skill that a lot of people didn't have, and even today a lot of people don't have. So that skill, when I say accidentally, people started asking me to build their websites for them, and so at first I did it as a volunteer, and then I got another ask and another ask and another ask, and people were always asking me to build their websites for them. So I thought, well, I probably should charge for this because I'm spending a lot of time doing it. And 20 years later, I own a website development company called Dry Wash Media, have clients all over the country. We develop websites for mostly nutrition organizations, but any kind of membership organization. I have a business partner and a team of coders, and very successful and happy to be in that business. But I say accidental because, and sometimes that's the way entrepreneurship works, is you don't even plan to do it. Just people like start asking you to do things for them, or you're getting requests from clients, or your customer starts telling you what they want or what they need. And then you start doing that because there's an ask for it. And so fast forward to today, I work at ASU and also support entrepreneurship. We have a prepped program where we teach food entrepreneurs to how to improve their sales and increase their business for mobile food entrepreneurs. And we ask people commonly, why do you do this, or how did you start your business? And it's very common for them to say, you know what, I made cupcakes and everybody kept asking me to make them cupcakes, and I was like, well, I need to charge for all these cupcakes I'm making. And next thing you know, they have a cupcake business. That's very common. And it's actually a fine way to start a business because you kind of have some market validation right from the beginning. I've also been in companies where we had an idea and we thought this is going to work really well and we'll try launching it and see what happens, and nobody likes it. So it's definitely better when it's driven by the customer and when it starts that way. And that a lot of times the most successful businesses are just that, just kind of accidental is what I call them businesses. The last business that I'm involved in currently is, in addition to the website development company, is I had a student who took my nutrition entrepreneurship class years ago. She's a dietitian for Mayo Clinic, and her husband is a pharmacist, and they developed a dietary supplement. It's just a multivitamin without vitamin K. So it's called KFree Daily. It's a simple multivitamin with 100% of most of the RDAs, just missing vitamin K. And the reason that developed it is because some people need to reduce the amount of vitamin K they take because they're on blood thinners. So if you're on Coumadin or any kind of blood thinning agent, vitamin K helps your blood to clot, whereas Coumadin helps your blood not to clot. And so you could certainly eat vitamin K if you're on Coumadin, but you have to monitor it. And the more vitamin K you add, the more it changes your INR, and you have to basically increase your Coumadin levels. So the bottom line is a lot of people who are on Coumadin and other blood thinning agents try to reduce how much vitamin K they consume. So when they take a vitamin, most multivitamins have vitamin K. They developed a product called KFree Daily, and they started selling it on the internet and also through Amazon. And they got the company profitable, and then decided they didn't want to do it anymore because they thought, I just don't feel like I'm an entrepreneur, and I think I want to stop doing this company. So I asked to see their profit and loss statement, and I bought the company about 6 years ago. And we've doubled its sales every year. It does pretty well because actually Coumadin is like the sixth most prescribed drug in the US, and there's a lot of people on Coumadin. They're trying to control their vitamin K levels. Bottom line is we're able to take that company, make it even more profitable. We sell it you can find it on Amazon. It does pretty well. And over this pandemic, it's done really well. A lot of people are at home. A lot of people are buying supplements right now. They're just interested in their health. It happens to be that some of the nutrients in our vitamin have been known by some practitioners to reduce severity of COVID-like symptoms, like quercetin. We just added quercetin just recently, before we even knew that it was helpful. But a lot of things that we have in it, like zinc and like vitamin C, are things that people are trying to take to stay healthy right now. And so it does pretty well. So those are the businesses I currently am involved in, KFree Daily and Dry Wash Media. And like I said, we were in a separate business for 10 years. But what I learned a few years ago was that I didn't have to have two separate worlds of being a nutrition professor and an entrepreneur. I could actually combine these two worlds and actually teach entrepreneurship, because I kind of had these two different worlds in my life, and now they're combined. And so I started, like Chrissy said, I started the nutrition entrepreneurship class in the College of Health Solutions, and then I moved to the College of Nursing and Health Innovation, where I am now, and I teach health innovation and entrepreneurship. And we have a master's degree in health entrepreneurship and a bachelor's degree in health entrepreneurship and innovation. And the master's is completely online. The undergraduate in health entrepreneurship and innovation is taught at the ASU downtown campus, ASU West campus, and also through ASU online. So I love the ability to take what I know and have learned, some of those, trials and tribulations that Julia was talking about, how I know what works, I know what doesn't work. I still am learning. I will always be learning, but to be able to help students also think entrepreneurially, or in this case, as this slide here says, intrapreneurially. And so being an entrepreneur, if you haven't heard that term before, is just acting in an entrepreneurial way within the organization you're employed. So I look at an example of that would just be ASU. I mean, President Crow came to ASU and, said decided they were going to add another campus, a downtown Phoenix campus. That's an entrepreneurial activity. We now have a building in Washington, D.C. and LA. These are entrepreneurially mindseted solutions that our leadership has taken on, but they don't personally profit from it. They're just doing it for the benefit of the students and doing it for the benefit of the institution. I'll give you some examples of students who have come up with interesting solutions. This is Jared. He was an engineering student and now is a professor at ASU. Who got his PhD while spending some time looking for solutions with his engineering background. And he had visited some areas in rural Africa where women were carrying water for long periods of time, unclean water. And he developed this product called SafeSip, which rolls water and filters it at the same time, doubling the amount of water per trip and reducing travel time by 80%. I'm giving you this as an example because these are students who are thinking entrepreneurially and using the skills of innovation to develop a product or service that actually adds value to folks. These two female students, these are engineering students on the top right-hand side on a shipping container, and they recognize that there are needs for sanitary labor and delivery facilities around the world. And they thought, what if we took a shipping container, which is it's waterproof, it's weatherproof, it has to be able to take products and ship it all around the world. And we built a medical facility inside of it. And they did so, and it's called the G3 box. They were named Entrepreneur Magazine's College Entrepreneur of the Year Award for 2011, and that's a nationwide contest. Again, two ASU students who are thinking. Now, they didn't invent a medical facility. They did not invent a shipping container. They just put two things together that weren't already together. And so these are just some of the things that students can think of. And I like to say I like to work with students because they think outside the box because they don't know there's a box, you know. And here's an example of a box, but the reality is this is probably a solution I could have never came up with. You know, I just wouldn't have thought of it, honestly. And students are very creative and innovative, and I think you know, sometimes it's because of lack of information that actually is there to their benefit. It's not uncommon to, if you reach out to anyone who works in the healthcare field to say, are there any problems that need to be solved? Everyone's quick to say, yeah, there's all kinds of problems that need to be solved. I work in a hospital and they're slow and they're expensive and there's not enough equipment and whatever. They'll tell you all the problems. And then you say, well, why don't you solve the problem? And they'll give you all the reasons why they can't solve the problem. You know, we don't have any money. There are like legislation doesn't allow it. Our CEO is a jerk. Whatever. There's so many reasons that they can't come up with solutions. And students don't think that way. They think very innovatively. They come up with ideas because they don't have all the obstacles in mind. And that is a very good place to be, I think, for students. And so that's why I like working with students. That's why I love what I do and kind of the reason for why I do it. Okay, so how do you do this? How do you think entrepreneurially? And I think it's what was great about this idea is that you don't really have to or it's not germane to one specific field. It really doesn't matter what the field is. So this is an example. This is actually a nutrition student from a few years ago when I was teaching nutrition entrepreneurship class who had an idea. And I want to say her idea was like a babysitting app that was kind of similar to like an Uber for babysitters. So you could just go to an app and you can like order a babysitter, and this babysitter would be certified and CPR certified and all this. And I thought, man, this is a few years ago, and they probably already have this by now. But I thought that is a really good idea. I mean, I can imagine how many parents would love to have an app like that where you have access to someone who's been already vetted and passed background checks and all that kind of thing. But how do you do it? And really, the solution or the formula is very similar no matter what field you're in. So identify a solvable problem like poor access to healthy foods in urban food deserts. Find a solution like a mobile food truck, a gardening education, a community gardening education. Test the idea. And we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail in a second, and then launch the product or service. And the testing is really important. That's that lean business methodology that we teach and that you'll hear about a lot in entrepreneurial circles today. So how do you solve problems innovatively? Here's an example of innovation at its best. Just someone sharing. I want my house to look just like that one. This is an actual picture that I took in my neighborhood a few years ago. First, like I said, you have to find the problem. And Einstein said if I had 20 days to solve a problem, I would take 19 just to define it. Knowing what the actual problem is really important. Take some time to think. Bill Gates himself takes 2 1 week think weeks a year away from the internet, away from cell phones, in a retreat in a secluded location, and just reads papers. I mean, not everyone has a luxury of doing that. I think if we're all being honest, we could take some time away from our technology and get outside, no matter where you live. You know, I think I try to do that every day when I can. Today I went for an hour walk and I just turn off my phone. And there's pretty good research to support this. This is a study from the University of Utah showing that when they took 60 men and women who were going on a 4-day nature hike and took their phones away from them, and they gave half the group a creativity test on day 1 and another half the group a creativity test on day 4. And which group do you think was more creative? Just put up your fingers, 1 or 4. Yeah, 4. Everyone knows that. I mean, come on. I've never heard anybody answer that incorrectly. Unless they're trying to be funny. Everyone knows that. I mean, it's so common sense, but here's the science to prove it. By being outside, by turning off your phone, by being away from technology. Here we are using technology, and I'm telling you not to be on technology. I would never say we should eliminate technology from our lives. I just think that we need to take some intentional time away from it. And we're seeing students with more anxiety, stress, and and loneliness than we've ever seen in the past. And I strongly believe that that's related to our increase in technology and how this connection of only being connected through a screen is actually over time detrimental. So being outside is really important. And there's a lot of solutions that nature can teach us. And there's a whole field at ASU called biomimicry, where we learn how to create solutions by watching what nature already tells us. You know, by looking at bugs and leaves and grass and rocks, and looking at the shapes and how they weather, rain, and all of that can tell us so many things. And there's scientists and there's entrepreneurs coming up with real healthcare solutions based on science of not what they figured out, but what nature's already figured out for them. And by studying the palms of geckos, you can make robots now that climb walls, and you can take shark skin and put it into hospital material that decreases any kind of risk of infection and the spread of bacteria. So by looking at what nature's already done, we really have learned a lot from it, but it also increases our own creativity. I'll say one more thing about being outside is that research is clear about this as well. It's beneficial for you mentally, and it's beneficial for you physically. And blood pressure drops by 10% just by being outside, like within minutes, just by going for a walk outside within minutes. And of course, you can exercise inside, you can go on a treadmill, but the benefit is more so when it's outside than it would be than when you're on a treadmill. It's not the same. And so being outside, looking around, seeing what's around you, breathing in fresh air, it increases in creativity. We talked about that. It improves health and mental health. Of course, we know the physical benefits of physical activity, but also stress and blood pressure decrease almost immediately. Finally, I'll say one more thing about this. Science is very also clear that when you add green grassy areas to like urban districts that have high incidence of gun violence goes down dramatically in those areas. So we're just not designed to be indoor and looking at pavement all the time and cement. We're designed to be in that environment right there. And we need to spend more time doing that. So,
well, and just a quick step in there, Rick, we had people last month, we're talking about the blue zones, and it just totally flows with what you're talking about right now for those of you that were there in the last one. And I think it was really enlightening for a lot of people, but it's right on track, of course. And all of us totally believe it. And it's so fun when research just lines up with it. So thank you for reiterating, because that's a consistent theme from any speaker that you'll hear.
Good. I love that. You know, and I try to, like, when I talk about entrepreneurship, I try to pull in, you know, obviously the science, but also like all the things that that help improve our health while we're making these solutions. And it's if you start paying attention to nature, you can really learn a lot from it. And that's why there's a whole new science devoted specifically to that. So thank you for telling me that. Spend some time in your best thinking spot. I don't know where you think best, but spend some time there. You know, I think best when I'm swimming. The problem is there's nowhere to write it down when you're doing that. But I solve the world's problems when I'm swimming. I think it's primarily because there's nothing. It clears my mind. You know, all I'm looking at is the center line of a pool, or maybe I'll be at a lake or whatever I'm at. But I think very clearly when my mind is focused on just swimming. For some people it's walking or running. Some people it's in the shower, wherever it is. Spend some time there. If you can get to a place where you can also take notes, I think it's really important too. I really believe in journaling. Change your lens. Look at like where you're at differently. You know, there's a book. I don't know if I have it here or not. It's in my office. There's a book that specifically on innovation, and it talks about how we need to change our lens and think, instead of deja vu, he uses the term vujade, where you go to the same place every day, but you try to look at it differently than you have in the past. Practice riddles and remote association tests. This goes back to the thinking. We're talking about problem solving here. What are these remote association? What do these words share with each other? Anybody know the answer to that? You can say it out loud or put it in chat. Manners, round, and tennis. What are those 3 words? How would you associate them? What's a word? Anyone have any ideas? I didn't know either. I had to look it up. Usually there's one person in every group that knows the answer. It's table. So if you look at it, I'll go back to it real quick. Table manners, round table, and table tennis. So the word table, and the reason I bring up this remote association is that's how they measure creativity. So, and like I said earlier, with those two girls who put those two things together, a hospital and a shipping container. Like, again, I wouldn't have thought of that. That's just an indication of innovation and creativity by able to put things together you may not even think go together, but there's usually somewhere they do belong together. Ask questions. I bring this up. Dr. Edwin Land, he's a research scientist who he was into cameras. He developed the cameras that went into the spy planes, the U-2 spy planes, and he developed the Polaroid camera. And that technology was amazing when it came out. It's still amazing today that you can actually take a picture and it would develop and print right there on the spot. And the reason I bring up his story is because his daughter, he was on a vacation, spending time outside, on a vacation. They took a picture of his daughter, and his daughter said, "How come I can't see the picture now?" Now, of course, today kids can see the picture instantly because we have iPhones. But back in this day, you'd have to send in your film to a lab, and it would, take some time, and you'd get it back, the picture. Then you'd see it. That's when you would know if you took a good picture or not. It would be a week or two later. She said, "How come I can't see it now?" And so he explained to his daughter why you can't see the picture now, because of how processing a film works. And then he went for a walk on vacation and invented the Polaroid camera in his head. And the hero of this story for me is the child. It's a 5-year-old daughter who wasn't afraid to ask a question. And too often we get afraid to ask questions, even our students, they don't want to question their professors or their leaders or their boss at work. And asking questions is super important. Often the solution starts with the question. And so when we're defining the problems, you've got to ask questions. And it doesn't mean you don't trust people. It just means you're asking, like, I need to know why this doesn't work. And so that's very helpful. I also recommend learning and always be learning. This is Entrepreneur Magazine is a magazine I subscribed to for about 20 years. I really enjoyed it. If you're interested, you can pick up like on a magazine for like $5, just one a month's version, but you can also subscribe to it for like $20 a year and get it every month. It's just a great compilation of entrepreneurs around the country doing amazing things. It's really fun to read because you really get some new ideas from doing that. I strongly recommend it. They also have a website. You can go to the Entrepreneur Magazine website and read a lot of their stories there. Join groups to help you develop your own interesting skills. You're all doing that. You're a part of a group right now. There's other clubs like ASU as a nutrition, or not nutrition, but a health entrepreneurship club. You can also belong to that club. Look for conferences and books to always be learning. And then I always say teach others. I mean, I know several of you are teachers. Some of you are yoga teachers. Some of you are teach health and wellness and coaching and all of that. That's the right mindset. And I think that's the best way to learn things. You always learn things better when you're teaching to somebody else. I learned that when I started teaching. And before being at ASU, I started teaching at a community college like Chrissy was. And I got some questions I didn't know the answer to, like people, I'd teach a nutrition class, someone asked me a question and puts you on the spot and you feel really awkward, but those are the best ways to learn because darn it, you're going to learn the answer to that question after you get asked a question. So start teaching, even if you don't feel ready to. As soon as you learn something, teach somebody else the same thing. You're going to learn faster by doing that. Serve others. I really strongly believe in this mentality of donating some, but not all of your, this whole idea of we need to value ourselves. I agree, but we also need to look for opportunity to serve others. So sometimes donating your time or service to a certain number of people could be beneficial to you and also can pay you back later. And I've learned that many times over, that if I budget part of my time, part of my service, part of my profit to someone else in need, I often benefit from that myself. it comes back to me in either indirectly or directly. Sometimes it's just being mentioned or thanked, and all of a sudden you get recognition from some organization because of the time that you put into that. But it's always paid off for me, and I really believe that. Be opportunistic. I love this word. It sounds like a negative word. Oh, you're so opportunistic. I love this word. And to me, it means just looking at what the trends are and making decisions based on where the opportunities are. Where are the opportunities? Do an environmental scan. It's not too hard to see. There's trends in obesity and wellness are here. Healthcare. I mean, we can talk about obesity for I could do like a 3-hour presentation on that. What are the trends in healthcare? What are the population shifts? There are 10,000 baby boomers that retire every day in the United States. So if you're an entrepreneur and you're thinking, I don't know how to make money, I would say focus on them. I mean, focus on the 10,000 people a day in the aging population who are retiring. And frankly, some of them have money. I mean, to be honest with you, and some of them don't. But how can you, and those who don't maybe have insurance or Medicare or Medicaid or whatever, but there's opportunity in the aging population. There's a huge opportunity because that's where our demographic shift is heading in the United States, to this aging population. That's where the opportunities are. And now there's other opportunities in other areas, but we need more people interested in serving those populations. Look, immigration shifts, look at food supplies and regulations. Here's someone who was very opportunistic when there was a snowstorm and they developed an igloo and tried to market it on Airbnb. Airbnb made him take it off, by the way. Trends in technology. These are just some, of all of these, but nutrigenomics, the day of Zoom and Androids and air droids. I mean, there's so many things in technology that are disrupting how we do life and healthcare, and then find opportunities to innovate within that. Some ideas that I've heard related to from the students in the classes that I've taught are nutrition education board games for kids, mobile dental units, mobile apps for telemedicine on a bicycle. That's the student up on the board right there. He's a physician, a medical doctor from India, and that was his idea, was a telemedicine application for bicycle ambulances in India, because they can't get with the traffic there, it's so bad, they can't get ambulances to people fast enough, but they can get there on a bicycle. So how do you serve those people when you get to their house? Mobile vaccine clinics. This is what I talked about earlier with the lean startup methodology. And I'll just do a couple more slides here, and then I'll just take a break and let's open up for a discussion. Solutions only succeed when they meet a need. And so users must want it. And I could share a couple books that we tend to recommend on this. And there's a lean startup methodology book that I don't have here, but I do have a couple books that relate to this topic. And one is the Business Model Canvas. See if you can see this one. Whoa. How many slides did I just go through? Oh, there we go. Can you see this book? Wow, look at that. That's funny. So I put it over my head. This is awesome. It's like my book is invisible. You can't see it, can you? If I turn it at an angle, there you go. Whoa, business model generation. So basically this lean startup methodology says that you create a solution right here, this first bubble. You create a solution. You could propose an MVP, which is a minimally viable product. You could do a prototype, or you could just create an idea, write it out, and then you validate it with your customer, test it, ask people if they like the idea. So we say to run your idea by 100 people, like the first week. So you can say, hey, I have this idea. I'm going to start a mobile yoga business, and I'm going to go into the community and I'm going to have a yoga van, and I'm going to bring out the mats and teach it. And what do you think of my idea? And just get input, get people telling you what they like and don't like about your idea. Don't just run it by your mom. Run it by people who are real potential users, and ask them, do they like the idea? Would they use it? How much would they pay for it? Try to get some validation there. And then what you do is you figure out how to fix it. And that's this pivot where you go back and go, okay, I thought I had a good idea. It's not such a good idea. Other people said they didn't like it. or they thought it would be better if I tried this instead. Really, instead of doing a yoga business, I'm going to do a coaching business, or I'm going to do a nutrition business, or I'm going to do catering business. I mean, be willing to flex and be willing to change based on what the customer has told you. Like I said earlier, some of my businesses have been accidental, but it's not because I thought of the idea. It's because my customer told me they wanted it. Like, we want you to build a website for us. You know, we want this product, and can you make it for us? And you're always going to get better outcomes if you're creating solutions that people tell you that they want before you create them. And I've been a part of companies who have launched and spent over $100,000 trying to launch and found out that nobody wanted it. And that's problematic. And I'm not saying I've made that mistake, but I've been a part of companies that have made that mistake, and I've seen them waste 1, 2, 3 years trying to develop a company that just really was going down a path that the customer did not want. So be very aware of that before you create your company and then scale your company. I always recommend doing a SWOT analysis, strengths, opportunities, weaknesses, and threats, you know, in your organization. Just because you find some weaknesses and threats doesn't mean it's a bad idea. It just means you're aware of them so you can address them. And you can do that. There's a website that I recommend is canvanizer.com. You could do this whole SWOT analysis online. And you can also share that with other people. That link that you get when you sign up for canvanizer.com, and 2 or 3 people on your team can also edit this document at the same time. Similar is the business model canvas, and that's the book I was just showing you. And that is when you just kind of lay out all the elements of your business. Who are the key partners? Who are the key resources? What are the key activities? What's your value proposition? What's the value that you're adding to people's lives through your product? Who are the customer segments? That's the far right group. Who are the specific people you're serving? The channels is how you're going to market to them, and a relationship is how you're going to keep those customers. And finally, at the bottom, you have cost structure and revenue streams. So this is what you can easily Google this business model canvas. You can use the canvanizer.com website for this as well. I do it for a lot of my businesses. I just always want to lay this out. It's instead of a business plan, you know, like, the only people want to see a business plan these days is an investor or a bank or your business teacher. I almost never do a business plan. In fact, I've never done a business plan, and I've owned multiple businesses. I do this though, and that's the business model canvas. And that just gives me the opportunity to lay out all those things you might put in a business plan, but instead of drafting it out in paragraph forms and making a 20-page document, just lays it all out there in one place. And the beauty of this is it can change. You might think that your customer segments are moms and personal trainers and athletes, but you might find out that it's actually doctors and nurses and healthcare providers. So as you pivot your idea, maybe your customers change over time. So I'm going to stop sharing there, and I'll just tell you a little bit about what I do at ASU related to this topic outside of the education programs that I belong to, which I already mentioned, is the Master of Healthcare Innovation and the Bachelor of Health Entrepreneurship and Innovation programs. The other one is the Health Entrepreneur Accelerator Lab, and that's the HeaLab. I know Stephanie's been a part of some of our meetings. We have another club. It's a Student Entrepreneurship and Innovation Health Club, and it meets out of the space. There's a brand new building that ASU is part of. It's called the Wexford Building, and it's on 4th Street in Garfield in downtown Phoenix, and it's an 8-story building, maybe 7-story building that's devoted completely to health entrepreneurship and innovation. We'll be opening and doing, it's open now. We are in the space, but we'll be starting to do in-person activities there in the fall. But the idea is that you want to help you with your solution. You know, it's up to you to come up with the problem and the solution. It's up to us to help you put that business model together, get you some mentorship, hopefully get you into the Venture Devils program, which is ASU's entrepreneurship and innovation funding source that we do every semester. And there's always, you belong to a university, if you go to ASU, even as a faculty member, that really supports entrepreneurship. And if you have an idea and you want to take it to market, use these resources. You know, go to get your product in Venture Devils and try to get funding. We've had students get anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000 free money to start their business. And even though the money sounds like really important and interesting, more important is all the mentorship that you get. In an ideal setting, you'd get your business off the ground through while you're still a student, bachelor's or master's student at ASU. Take advantage of that leadership, of that mentorship. Take advantage of the subject matter experts that are at ASU in the faculty. Try to get your product launched. And then you can look for external sources of funding outside of the university. Like in Arizona, we have the Flynn Foundation, who gives $30,000 a year to companies that they support. You have to apply for it. The Arizona Commerce Authority has funding sources. And then we have, once you've been through those programs, we even have things like the Mayo Clinic ASU MedTech Accelerator, where we further develop companies. So there's resources here and out there. You just have to come up with a good idea. You have to be willing to, pivot and be flexible and be coachable. That's really important. Sometimes we get our egos in the way, but if you can get your ego out of the way and listen to feedback, whether it be the subject matter experts or the mentors or the customers, and be willing to create an idea that actually adds value that people want, then there's resources out there to help you do that. So I want to strongly encourage you to take advantage of that while you're attached to ASU. And with that, I'll stop and just ask if you have any specific questions or comments. And I know I went on for a while. I probably could have went on for another hour, but this is a topic that I certainly am very interested in and love to share about. So,
well, I have a question. How is HeaLab as an accelerator? How do you support an idea, and like at what point do you switch them over to venture doubles and say, okay, you need to go get funding?
Well, our goal is to, originally HeaLab was an idea that I had to create an entrepreneurial space that's specific to health, that is on the downtown campus, because in ASU, the engineering college, business college, design college, they all have these entrepreneurial spaces, but we didn't have anything at ASU downtown. So originally it came out of the Edson College of Nursing, Health, Innovation. It was a space that I created with, didn't really have any funding or revenue or anything. Over the years, we've developed, we have our own workshops, we bring in revenue, we have people donate to the HeaLab. So we have our own money now. We give money to students every year. If you become part of our club and you pitch your idea and you win, we have our own funding pitch competitions. You have ability to win some money. We give out some money every year, every semester for our club. But then in addition to that, and most importantly, our goal is, and first of all, we're no longer just the Edson College of Nursing and Health Innovation. The HeaLab is also part of the College of Health Solutions, also part of New College, and most importantly, part of ASU's Entrepreneurship Innovation Unit, which is now called the J. Orrin Institute of Entrepreneurship and Innovation. So we're all one and the same, and our goal is to get our students into Venture Devils. So we want all of our students. We want every one of you and every one of our students who are part of our club and are part of Chrissy's class, to anyone who's interested in entrepreneurship, to pitch your idea to Venture Devils. And you can do it every semester. You pitch it, and then if you get accepted, then you get mentorship for the whole semester. At the end of the semester, you pitch it officially, and it's a competition, and they fund it. I mean, they fund, I don't know how many thousands, like something like $50,000 a semester goes to student ventures. Now, each student gets a little piece of that. You might get $500, you might get $1,000, you might get $0, you might get $10,000. I've had students who get $20,000 in funding to launch their idea, and like I said, in free money. So why not take advantage of that? So in the HeaLab, the answer to your question is, we just help you refine your pitch and to get you into Venture Devils. That's our goal, is to get you into Venture Devils, and take your idea further from there, because we want to be a part of the whole ecosystem.
Awesome.
I have kind of a comment. It reminded me of your presentation, reminded me of something we learned in class, that one, kind of making a business model, you think of who's the customer, you think of their value, and then how you're going to deliver it. So that kind of just reiterated what you said. So it's kind of fascinating that those overlapped. Yeah. And then I also did have a question. So I took a health informatics class, and we had to create an AI application in which would be used in healthcare. And Dr. Pine, my teacher, had actually recommended HeaLab for me. So my question is, after we kind of pitch the deal, let's say everything kind of goes well and everything, does ASU ultimately own that business, or kind of how does that work?
So if Julia or Chrissy or I create a product or service using ASU time and ASU computers and ASU lab spaces, ASU owns that because we did it while we were paid by ASU salary. Now I do my businesses off the side when I'm not on ASU time, when I'm not using an ASU resource, and those companies belong to me. But if I'm working in an ASU lab and I create, or I create some new patent or whatever, ASU will own that, but not for students. So by law and by regulation and by philosophy, the university does not take ownership of students, and the funding that we give to you is free and clear of any, and the mentorship is free and clear of any stake in the company. So we don't take ownership, and that's a great thing. And because there's accelerators all over the country that will help you with your business, but they'll take 15-20% of your company. We don't do that. So.
That's amazing. And then kind of just a follow up. So you did mention how they would mentor you throughout the next semester. So I was just wondering, as I graduate in about 2 months, would that kind of carry over, or would that just ultimately kind of have a hard stop and you're left on your own? Kind of how does that work?
No, I mean, our goal is to help students forever. I mean, it's like I still mentor some companies that I helped start 4 years ago. So we don't end the relationship. We're successful if you're successful. I mean, I want nothing more than the next big healthcare innovation to come out of the HeaLab, and that's going to be good for me in the long term to have someone launch a company. And so one of the companies I mentor right now is called Navi Nurses. It might be called Navi Concierge Nurses, but is a PhD student who's a nurse who came to me 3 years ago and said, I want to start like a nursing service, like an Uber for nursing, when you can like go in an Uber app and like call a nurse. You know, sometimes you need someone to come over and give your mom a shot or whatever. That's where the idea started. Now they're doing a lot of things related to COVID. And we have a business meeting in 2 days, a Thursday. And we're going out to dinner of the whole board. And I've been involved with them for the last 3 years. So we want to help you get initial funding, but we actually want you to continue to succeed and get some real. They've had people in wanting to invest in them. So you're going to see more and more and hear more and more about them. They've been on Channel 12. They're killing it right now because nurses are in high demand right now, and so they started a service at a good time that really was needed. I'll take one more question, then unfortunately I have to jump off. But Stephanie, I think you have your hand up. Is that what that means?
I'm sorry, I'm muted. Yes, I wanted to speak a little bit about the Venture Devils. I've actually been involved with Venture Devils for about a year now. And the way that I understand it is I will continue to receive mentorship as long as I continue to engage with the Venture Devils, wanting their support. And the only way that you get kicked out of the program is if you raise $50,000 through the Venture Devils. So it takes, multiple pitches to get to $50,000. So you can stay engaged for as long as you want to be engaged with the Venture Devils. I've actually worked with 3 different mentors since I started with them, and it's been amazing. It's awesome. I really, really appreciate the opportunity to work with successful business owners that know what they're doing and that can help support my cute little business that I'm starting, So yeah, it's awesome. I definitely recommend it. And if you have an idea that's already developed, there is a pitch playoff deadline. It's open now until March 19th. So you have to have a 5-minute pitch and a executive summary in order to participate. But if you've got those things already, you can submit them through the website and be a part of the pitch playoffs.
Well, thank you guys for inviting me.
Thank you.
A great experience, and it's nice, always nice to meet new people. I look forward to seeing you all in future events. We put on our own conferences and workshops through the HeaLab, so I recommend, if you're not familiar with our programming, I'd love for you to be involved with us as well as this club. not in addition, not in substitute for, because we definitely would love to have people that are in your space, that are interested in holistic health. You know, as a dietitian, it's a very important issue to me as well. And so I'm excited for the areas that you guys are all interested in. And if I could help support you in any way, I'd love to do that. But thank you for the invitation. Stephanie,
Thank you so much.
nice to see you guys.
Thank you so much, Rick. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Appreciate it.
All right, you guys have a great week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
You too.